The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday evening, the kind that turns city streets into rivers and makes you question every decision that led you outside. Marcus sat hunched in the doorway of a closed hardware store on 5th Street, his thin jacket doing nothing against the cold that seeped into his bones. 3 months ago, he'd had an apartment, a job at the packaging plant, and enough money in his account to take his daughter out for ice cream on Sundays. Now he had a duffel bag with 2 changes of clothes, a sleeping bag that smelled like mildew, and the crushing weight of failure pressing down on his chest every single morning. He watched the blur of headlights pass by, each car a small universe of warmth and safety that had nothing to do with him. His phone had died 2 days ago. The shelter downtown was full by 4 o'clock every afternoon, and he'd learned the hard way that showing up after dinner meant sleeping outside, even in weather like this. His stomach growled, reminding him that the convenience store sandwich he'd scraped together change for was now 12 hours behind him. That's when he saw her. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, wearing a bright yellow raincoat that stood out like a sunflower against the gray evening. She was standing under the awning of the coffee shop across the street, her small hand pressed against the window as she peered inside. Something about the way she stood there, alone and still, made Marcus sit up straighter. He'd been a father once. He still was, even if he hadn't seen Emma in 2 months, even if his ex-wife had made it clear. He wasn't welcome until he got his life together. The little girl turned away from the coffee shop window, and Marcus saw her face crumple. She was crying, her small shoulders shaking as she hugged herself against the rain. He should mind his own business. He knew how it looked, a homeless man approaching a child. But something deeper than self-preservation pushed him to his feet. "Hey!" he called out, his voice rough from disuse. "You okay?" She looked up, her eyes wide and frightened. Tears streaked her cheeks, mixing with the rain. "I can't find my mom," she whispered. Marcus kept his distance, staying under his doorway. "How long have you been looking?" "I don't know. We were shopping, and I saw a puppy in the pet store window, and I just went to look for a second. And when I came back, she was gone." The words tumbled out in a rush, and she started crying harder. "I tried to find her, but everything looks the same. And my phone is in her purse, and I don't know what to do." Every instinct Marcus had as a father kicked in. "Okay, listen to me. You're going to be okay." "What's your name?" "Sophie." "Sophie, I'm Marcus. I bet your mom is looking for you right now, probably worried sick. Do you remember what store you were in when you last saw her?" Sophie nodded, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "The one with all the clothes. It had a blue sign." Marcus knew the store. It was 4 blocks away. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk on this side of the street, and you're going to walk on that side, and we're going to go back to that store. But you stay where I can see you, okay? Don't come close to me. Just stay over there where people can see you're safe." They started walking, Marcus keeping his promise to stay on the opposite sidewalk. Every few seconds, he'd look over to make sure Sophie was still there, still moving. She was so small, so vulnerable in this big, indifferent city. He thought of Emma, wondered if someone would help her if she ever found herself lost and scared. When they reached the clothing store, Marcus could see a woman inside, talking frantically to a security guard. Even from outside, he could see the panic on her face, the way her hands shook as she gestured. Sophie saw her, too. "Mom!" she screamed. The woman's head whipped around, and her face transformed from anguish to pure relief in an instant. She ran outside, not caring about the rain, and dropped to her knees to wrap Sophie in her arms. Oh my God, baby, I was so scared."
"Where were you?"
Sophie was crying into her mother's shoulder, saying something Marcus couldn't hear. He started to back away, his job done. Time to disappear before questions were asked, before the gratitude turned to suspicion. But Sophie pulled away from her mother and pointed at him. "That man helped me. He walked me back here." The mother stood up slowly, her arms still around her daughter. Her eyes met Marcus's across the street, and he saw the calculation happening, the assessment. Wet, dirty clothes, unshaven face, the duffel bag that marked him as transient. He'd seen that look 1,000 times in the past 3 months. Then something shifted in her expression. She walked toward him, pulling Sophie along, and Marcus fought the urge to run. When she stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the mascara tracks on her cheeks, she said, "You helped my daughter. Anyone would have, Marcus said, looking down. But you did, her voice cracked. When I realized she was gone, I imagined every horrible thing. And you kept her safe. She's a good kid, brave. The woman was quiet for a moment, studying him. Have you eaten today? Marcus felt heat creep up his neck. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. She looked at the coffee shop, then back at him. Will you let me buy you dinner? Please, it would mean a lot to me. Pride and hunger went to war in Marcus's chest. Pride had been winning for 3 months, keeping him from asking for help, from admitting how far he'd fallen. But hunger was patient, and it was merciless, and right now it was screaming. Okay, he said quietly. They sat in a booth in the back of a diner, and Marcus ordered carefully, trying not to look too eager, trying not to order too much. But the woman, who introduced herself as Jennifer, just kept ordering more. A burger, fries, soup, coffee, a slice of pie. She watched him eat with an expression that Marcus couldn't quite read. Sophie sat next to her mother, drinking hot chocolate and coloring on the paper placemat the waitress had brought. Every few minutes, she'd look up at Marcus and smile, and he'd smile back, his heart aching for his own daughter. How long? Jennifer asked quietly. Marcus didn't pretend not to understand. 3 months. Got laid off, couldn't make rent. It happens faster than you think. Do you have family? A daughter. 9 years old. Lives with her mother. He paused. They're better off without me right now. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. I work in HR at Crawford Industries. We're hiring for the warehouse. It's not glamorous, but it's steady work, good benefits. I can get your application to the top of the pile. Marcus stared at her. Why would you do that? Because you helped my daughter when you had every reason to stay in that doorway and protect yourself. Because you're clearly someone who was dealt a bad hand. Not someone who deserves to be left behind. She pushed a business card across the table. Come by tomorrow at 9. Wear whatever you have. I'll handle the rest. The tears came before Marcus could stop them, hot and shameful. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed his arm. And that simple gesture of human kindness broke something open inside him that had been frozen for months. Thank you, he managed to say. No, Jennifer said firmly. Thank you. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the parking lot of Crawford Industries, watching the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold. He had an apartment now, nothing fancy, but it was his. He had a paycheck with his name on it. And this Saturday, he was picking up Emma for their first overnight visit since everything fell apart. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Coffee before shift? Heard you made Employee of the Month. Marcus smiled and texted back, You buying? Always. As he walked toward the building, Marcus thought about that rainy Tuesday evening, about a little girl in a yellow raincoat and a moment of choice. He'd spent months believing he had nothing left to give, that his own struggle had hollowed him out completely. But kindness, he'd learned, doesn't require abundance. It just requires seeing another human being and deciding they matter. Sophie had needed help that night. But looking back, Marcus realized he'd needed to help her even more. In choosing to reach out despite his own pain, despite having every excuse to turn away, he'd reminded himself that he was still someone worth saving. That one act of selflessness had created a ripple that changed everything. The power of humanity, Marcus understood now, isn't in grand gestures or perfect circumstances. It's in the small moments when we choose each other, when we recognize that our shared vulnerability connects us more than our differences divide us. It's in the word her, meaning not just Sophie or Jennifer or Emma, but every person we have the chance to see and help and remember is human just like us. He pulled open the door to the building, ready for another day of work, another step forward. Behind him, the sun continued to rise, casting light on new possibilities, on second chances, on the beautiful, messy, redemptive power of showing up for each other. Because sometimes all it takes is one person who sees you, really sees you, and decides you're worth the effort. And sometimes being that person for someone else is what saves you both.